Oh, we have a fight on the other side. Crabtree, referee is down.
Where one wide receiver gets suspended, another returns. Welcome to the land of fantasy football. What's going on, fantasy football fans? I'm your host, Hussein the Brain, and you're watching The Couch. These are my Week 13 waiver wire pickups. If it's your first time on this YouTube channel and you want to crush it in fantasy football, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you won't miss anything. Now on to the waivers. No doubt about it, folks. Case Keenum is a baller. He's been balling out of control. Just face it, he's a QB1 in fantasy, and there's not a lot of elite quarterbacks, so this makes Case Keenum, dare I say, a great quarterback. And look at this schedule, pretty good. Atlanta Falcons, their defense is meshing a little bit. They've been playing a lot better as a team, but still, you can pass against them. You can also run against them. That's good for Keenum. Now we're going on to the Panthers the next week, so the Panthers week 15. Their front seven's okay, but their secondary, you can attack them. So that's, again, another good matchup. Then we have the Bengals. That's a so-so. That's not good nor bad. But then week 16, is that right? I'm doing the math right? 14, 15, 16, yeah. Week 16 in the Fantasy Football Super Bowl for most of us, about 96.5% of leagues have the Super Bowl week 16. They're facing the Packers. Excellent matchup. Horrible defense that the Green Bay Packers have. Then week 17, they face the Bears for that 3.5% that play week 17. Not a terrible defense, but not a good one either. Then we have another likely QB1, but an unlikely candidate to likely be a QB1. That's Josh McCown. Facing the Chiefs, I think he should be added. He's more of a QB2 on your team if you have a good quarterback, but if you have a horrible quarterback, there's a lot of those nowadays, then Josh McCown could easily be a QB1. More of a streaming option, more of a guy that I don't really trust, but man, as you can see, he's top 2 on my waiver list for quarterbacks. A lot of people, including myself, dropped Tyrod Taylor because of the Peterman experiment. That didn't last all but, what, 2 quarters or something. So that's over. Tyrod Taylor is a starter, and he's only owned in about half leagues, so he deserves a pickup as a QB2. We saw Brett Hundley play 1 or 2 decent games, and he had some good numbers last week against a good defense. Now, this guy is not to be trusted. I don't think he's that good, but the schedule is awesome. He's pretty good if you're in a deep league or a dual quarterback league. He faces the Bucks, he faces the Browns, then he faces the Panthers. Some sweet matchups right there. Trevor Siemian has been named the starter for the Broncos for week 13. There's a good chance he'll remain the starter throughout the season. That's really all I have to say about him. Obviously, not a quarterback you're dying to pick up, but hey, man, you gotta do what you gotta do. Really reaching for the bottom of the barrel now. We have Tom Savage, has a couple good matchups playing the Titans. Good run defense, not a good secondary. Then the 49ers. Blaine Gabbert is the starter, and that's all I gotta say about him. And just as I hit record on this video, Eli Manning was supposedly given the chance, like, hey, you know, to keep the streak going, you can start if you want. Then he declined. I don't know if that's true. What we do know is that he's being benched for Geno Smith. So Geno Smith is expected to be the starter for the Giants week 13. The Giants face the Raiders, then they face the Cowboys. That's pretty good matchups. We all know Geno Smith is trash though. If you're in this type of league, you know, dual quarterback league where you need to have 3 quarterbacks on your squad at all times, and you're thinking about picking Geno Smith, at least what you can do is keep tabs on Sterling Shepard. So he's missed the last 2 games with illness/migraines. Let's see if he's going to play. Let's see if they hold him out another week. I don't know what the status of Sterling Shepard is. But if you're thinking about picking up Geno Smith, keep tabs on Shepard. I'm going to go ahead and say this. Jimmy Garoppolo is better than CJ Beathard. CJ Beathard is hurt. I don't know who's starting week 13, so keep tabs on that. If you're in this type of league where you need to pick up a quarterback like number 32 ranked quarterback, number 31 ranked quarterback in your league. Now that Damian Williams is injured, Ajayi shipped off to the Eagles, Kenyon Drake becomes a RB2 / almost RB1. He becomes a startable running back. I mean, opportunities is so important in fantasy. If you get a lot of offensive snaps as a running back, that's a running back you want on your squad. Rex Burkhead has filled in for that Julian Edelman role, and if Chris Hogan misses more time, his role is going to be even more expanded. Burkhead's, that is. He's great in PPR, and he's pretty good even in standard leagues. He gets carries, he gets snaps, and of course, he gets targets. He gets work in the passing game. And after this, it gets pretty much messy. I mean, I don't know. You can rank any of these guys anywhere. One guy I definitely want to mention that I didn't talk about before is Peyton Barber. So Peyton Barber has kind of outplayed Doug Martin some games, and I think he's past Jacquizz Rodgers. I mean, Jacquizz Rodgers, that's the name we haven't heard in a while. He's basically disappeared on fantasy radars. So I think Peyton Barber would get the start if Doug Martin is out. Doug Martin is currently in the concussion protocol and is week to week, so check up on his status. Peyton Barber, though, good matchup playing the Packers. I see about a 50-50 split in the future for Alfred Morris and Rod Smith. I didn't see Rod Smith play a lot better than Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris still ran the ball well. It's just that Rod Smith is better in the passing game. I can't find one reason the Cowboys would want to go with one guy over another. I see a 50-50 split continuing to happen. I'll leave these names up really quick, but it's not really worth mentioning any of these guys. I mean, it's week 13, you know, you're either making the playoffs or you're not. None of these guys are going to really make or break your team, like, except if you're in a 16-man league or deeper. Not gonna lie, I'm really excited about Josh Gordon. This is actually a good situation for fantasy owners because we're not gonna start him week 13. We're gonna see how he does. All odds are against him. Like, no one expects him to ball out week 13. But if we see some glimmer of hope, we see some good play, some good separations, him getting targets, him playing decent, we may want to consider starting him in the fantasy playoffs. This is why we stashed him. There's actually a lot of good wide receivers to pick up, whether in a shallow league or deep league or standard league. Josh Doxson, Randall Cobb, Zay Jones, who's pretty much the #1 wide receiver over there for the Bills. Their wide receivers are pretty bad, one of the worst in the NFL, but hey man, the #1, that's good for fantasy, right? Dontrell Inman, 22 targets the last 3 weeks. Not a great wide receiver, but he's just like I was saying about Zay Jones. He's probably the best wide receiver option on the Bears. We have D.D. Westbrook, Jermaine Kearse, Terrence Williams. Now that Cole Beasley has been complete trash this year, he's been forgotten about. Des Bryant hasn't quite been what he used to back in his days when he was playing with Romo. He was a beast. He was an elite wide receiver. Those days are gone. So I think Terrence Williams might step up. Dak's got to throw to somebody, right, other than Witten. We have Brandon LaFell and Marquise Goodwin. And in deeper leagues, we have Kenny Golladay. I put Cordero Patterson here because Crabtree's been suspended 2 games, and Amari Cooper actually has 2 injuries. I think he suffered a concussion, or at least being evaluated for a concussion. And I think on that same play, he suffered the concussion. He also suffered an ankle injury. So chances of him playing week 13 are looking pretty dim. Robert Woods is likely out this week, and that makes Josh Reynolds a streaming option. He would be the #3 wide receiver on the Rams. We also have Seth Roberts, the slot receiver for the Raiders, who would have an expanded role, of course, with AC and Crabtree missing time. Braxton Miller for the Texans, Chester Rogers, Tavon Austin. This is like really bottom of the barrel stuff here. But look at Tavon Austin. If you consider picking him up, maybe look at Malcolm Brown and Lance Dunbar. And we know if Robert Woods is hurt. If those guys are out, like Malcolm Brown and Lance Dunbar were both ruled out last week, that's going to boost the value of Tavon Austin. He's going to be involved kind of like the backup running back, the screen pass guy, you know, the gadget play. So that boosts his value if those 2 running backs are out. I think when I looked last week, I don't think the Rams only had 1 running back active. There's not really any tight ends to pick up other than Ricky Seals-Jones, who's like, I call him RSJ. He's like the new ASJ's severely disappointed us. So we're going with RSJ now. Look at this, 11 targets the last 2 weeks. Dare I say, that's the real deal. He got 6 targets week 12 and 5 targets week 13. I hope those stats are right. That's how I remember it. And what is it? 3 touchdowns? That's pretty good. He's been a legit wide receiver the last couple of weeks. Is worth a pickup if you need a tight end. I have Evan Ingram. I don't know, maybe with Geno Smith starting, maybe I have to pick up RSJ as well. We also have Charles Clay, CJ Fedorowicz, OJ Howard. Olsen's test came back negative, so I don't know if he's gonna play or not. Maybe they hold him out 1 week or 2 weeks as a precautionary thing. I don't know what the deal with Greg Olsen is. And if you're in deep leagues, like 32-man leagues, then we have Josh Hill if Kobe Fleener misses time. After my #1 ranked defense, things get messy here. I guess we're thankful that there's a lot of options, but if you can't get the Chargers D and you're in desperate need for a defense, then it's going to be tough this week. It's pretty messy. So #1 defense easily is the Chargers D. They've been playing well. They've beasted the last 2 weeks. They've been extremely elite. Boza, Melvin Ingram, those 2 guys are nasty. The secondary is nasty. And if they can get the lead, right, their offense can do their thing, then they're going to take the opposing offense out of the run game. Like, you're going to have to pass against them. And when you go into pass mode, like we're passing every play against the Chargers, that's when you get into trouble. By the way, they're playing the Browns. Now, after this, you can rank them anyway. It was so tough to rank them. I was just like, all right, man, this is it. It's just so tough. Like, I really don't see any defense standing out. I know I got like every defense on here. I'll talk about a couple that I think are worth a little bit of analysis. Everything's pretty straightforward here. The Bears D, you could rank them higher if CJ Beathard is playing. Like I said, I think Beathard's not that good, and I think Jimmy Garoppolo is pretty good. Not saying that the Niners offense is going to be incredible if Jimmy Garoppolo starts, but their offense has more upside for sure, and that makes the Bears much more risky if Jimmy Garoppolo is starting. If Beathard is starting, great streaming option, the Bears defense. I got the Giants D on here because I expect both Crabtree and Cooper to be out. Even if Crabtree appeals, I don't see a suspension getting reduced. And even if it does, that's going to be a 1-game suspension. So I fully expect those 2 wide receivers to be out. And as we know, those 2 guys are a huge part of that offense. Like, I don't know how they're going to move the ball without those 2 wide receivers. Lynch is going to have a good day. You know, Cordell Patterson and Seth Roberts are both going to have to step it up. Holton, or whatever his name is, he's more of like a deep threat. You know, he's not had a lot of targets this year. It's going to be tough. And now that we know that Geno Smith is starting, the Raiders, as a streaming defense, the Raiders are moving up, up, up. I mean, the Raiders, I dare say, it could be a top 5 defense, at least a top 10 defense. Their defense is not that great, and they're very risky this week. But with Geno Smith starting, man, and if that off chance that Sterling Shepard doesn't play, wow, the Raiders will move from like the bottom of my list to a top 10 streaming option. And in deeper leagues, we have the Chiefs defense, Jets D, and 49ers D, Buccaneers D, and the Packers D. Nick Novak would be my #1 kicker going against the Browns. Their defense is good. The Chargers defense this week, they're good to go. And of course, their kicker would be good to go as well. But Nick Novak is injured. He's day-to-day. The Chargers right now are trying out some other kickers. So this is what you do. You probably just wait it out. As soon as the Chargers sign a kicker, which might be later on in the week, and let's say the kicker seems decent, and you know your waiver period is up, boom, be the first one to pick him up off free agency. That way you won't waste your waiver priority. You know, you'll get him as a free agent. Awesome start, automatic start against the Browns. That's probably what I plan to do. I'm probably not going to waste a waiver priority on Nick Novak because he may not even play, and he's a kicker. Jake Elliott, Josh Lambo, and Nick Rose are all kickers that I trust this week. I like all 3 of them. Make sure you check out the next video coming out this week where I reveal details on how to enter my fantasy football contest for week 13. And I'll see you guys Saturday on the live stream. It's gonna be really intense. Hashtag HackMyLineup. Don't forget, guys, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. be there or be square. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that couch icon over here to the side of me, subscribe, like the video, and if you're asking a fantasy football question, make sure you use hashtag AskTheBrain. That way I know you're a true fantasy couch fan. Couch Squad, out.